Do you ever look at your kids and say, I want more for them? I want them to understand finances before they're adults. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I have. And if you too want to find ways to teach your children about money, this video is for you. The main thing that you want to do that's going to help your children learn to be fiscally responsible is going to be setting a good example for them to follow. So one thing that we always forget about with our children is that our children watch us even when we don't realize they're doing so. So they know what's going on in the home, even if you don't talk about it with them. You want to be a good example for your children. That's the first place to start. So if you are financially responsible and you're setting good financial goals and you're saving, you're teaching them the right things to do and everything like that, just by how you live your life, that's going to be the number one thing that you can do to help your children be financially responsible. Another thing is to capture the teachable moments that you have with your children. Say you're at the grocery store and they start counting back your change. Well, then you can have them, instead of just handing you the change in a lump without counting it back, you can have them count it back to you so that your children can see that transaction happening. Or you can also, instead of using your debit card, use a cash budgeting system so that your children can actually see things cost money and it's not just going on a credit card. It's not just going on plastic, because sometimes it's a lot less real whenever you use plastic to pay for things. Using cash and actually feeling that cash leave your hand is something that is just unmatched in the realization of how much money you're really spending. Another thing that I like to do is I love any game that has to do with money. So like Monopoly or Payday, or I really love the Cash Flow game by Rich Dad Poor Dad. They have a children's version of it. I love the adults version as well. My husband and I play it often. It kind of gives them an overview of a financial statement so that they can start learning what a financial statement is, assets versus liabilities, things of that nature. And that brings us to our next point. Teach your children the difference between an asset and a liability. The home you live in, liability. Home that you rent out to someone and someone else pays for the expenses of that home, asset. So explain to them the difference between the two. See, my son, he at first had zero interest in money. Like, he just doesn't care about getting money. He's not motivated to get money. He didn't care anything at all about money. And what we did was we kind of starved him a little bit. So we stopped buying him everything that he wanted every time he said he wanted it at the store. He used to get quite spoiled back whenever we were spending like crazy and getting ourselves in a boatload of debt that we really shouldn't have done. Now that we've been on this debt payoff journey for a couple of years now, we have really, really put a stop to the impulse buying on all members of our household. So we do not let our children do impulse buying anymore. We don't buy them whatever they want when they want it at the store. We make them sleep on it. We make them pay for it with their own money so that they understand that they need to earn that money, that they need to use that money and how much it hurts to give that money up, because you can't use it for the next thing, the other thing that you wanted. So you have to make a choice between two objects, things like that. We really try very hard to teach those lessons to our children. Another thing that we do is every time that they get money, whether it is, they don't really get an allowance. And I know that's a little bit of a touchy topic for some parents. Like, some people say they deserve allowance. Some people think they should work for their money. Right now, our budget is pretty tight, so we do not give an actual allowance. What we do is we actually have jobs posted, kind of like a job board, and we, depending on the difficulty of the job, he has his chores that he does just to help mom and dad maintain the home. And then he has jobs that are a little above and beyond. So like things that mom would usually do, like vacuuming the house and things like that, that I don't necessarily consider his chores. Like I consider him picking up after himself and making his bed and all those kind of things and putting away his laundry, things like that, like day-to-day things are what he does for his chores. But things that go above and beyond, like dusting and vacuuming and stuff that helps, helping in the yard work, things like that, we'll put a number on that, and then he will pick and choose what he would like to do to earn that extra money that he can earn. So that is one thing that we do to kind of teach him how money works a little bit. And the first thing that we do is have him pay himself first. So here's how we do it. We have 3 clear jars. And the first jar is going to be his savings jar. And he always puts 40% of whatever he gets into his savings jar. Then the next jar is his giving jar. And how we operate the giving jar in our home is that he puts in 10% of whatever he earns into the giving jar. If he decided that he wanted to volunteer some of his time, like go to a food shelter, a food bank or a shelter and help people, or, you know, do something like a project that's going to help people or help someone elderly in the neighborhood. We have quite a few elderly people in our neighborhood, things like that. If he chooses to use his time to give to someone, then I will let him take the money from his giving jar and split it between his spending and his saving jar. I feel like it's important to teach our children that there's more than one way to give to a person. The last jar is his spending/expenses jar. In this third jar, we put 50% of whatever he earns as his spending money. Another thing that's going to be great about teaching your children financial literacy is showing them how money works in the real world. So invite them in to your budgeting. Whenever you get your paycheck and you set up your budget and you pay the creditors and you pay all these other your bills and you pay for this and pay for that, invite them in to see that process so that they understand that the lights cost money for mom and dad, the heat costs money, so that they, it costs money to have Disney Plus, things like this. Oftentimes we don't think of that as a teachable moment. And it's sometimes can be difficult to invite your children in on something that personal. It's hard to invite anyone in on something that personal. Even your partner, you can't invite in on that topic because you're too embarrassed because you have debt or something like that. But one thing that is important to understand is that if you have debt, it's a great teachable moment for your child as well. So not only are they learning how money works in the real world, but they're also seeing how money mistakes can be very costly. And that leads us into the next point. You want your children to understand that every cost, the expense of purchasing the toy, but it also has what they call an opportunity cost. So if you show your child this toy is a $20 toy, and you can have this $20 toy and it'll bring you joy for a few months probably. But if you put that same $20 and you chose not to purchase the toy, if you put that same $20 in your UGMA account, which by the way, I did a video on that. It's part of this series and I'm going to link it up in the YouTube cards for you guys. If they choose to put that money in their UGMA account and invest it, and they're getting about a 7% return on their investment, they leave that money there until their retirement age, then they can make a lot more money off of that and show them what that is. So if you put $20 into an account over, say they're 10 years old and they want to make this purchase over 50 years. So $20 over a 50-year time span at a 7% return, without any other additional. This is just how much that specific $20 would be worth. So that $20, by the time they retire, if they chose to do that, would be worth $589.14. So that's really powerful. I mean, that's quite a lot more money for a $20 investment. And this brings us on to the next point. Teach them about the importance of retirement and planning for their retirement very early in life. So time is the most crucial component to retirement planning. And unfortunately, most of us don't start thinking about our retirement until we're almost 30 years old. I think that's pretty average. So if you started retirement planning for your children, boy, you could really get a lot of gains for them, and they can have a real big head start into their adulthood and also for their retirement. If you just started a Roth IRA for them whenever they're young, I did a video on how my children both have Roth IRAs, and I'm going to go ahead and link that video for you guys up in the YouTube cards. Part of the series that I'm doing on children and finance. So make sure that you subscribe so that you guys can see all those videos. Another thing that's really important for them to understand is the importance of staying out of debt. Teach them how credit works, how staying out of debt is going to be one of the biggest things that they can do for themselves in the future. So if you have debt, show them how much it costs you. So show them how, explain to them that life is a lot harder whenever you have debt, because you have to pay other people before you can pay yourself, and you could be using that money for this, that, and the other. Like, just explain those things to them so that they can really get value out of why it's a bad idea to have debt. And another thing that you can do to teach children how credit works is this. So what I do with my son is we have those little fake credit cards that come in the mail. Well, we kind of have one that's his, and he doesn't obviously pay the store with it, but if he wants to use it, if he wants to spend money that he doesn't have yet, then he can do that up to a certain limit. And usually it's like $20, because I don't want him to be like, I'm not going to give him credit for like $500 and he'll never pay me back, right? So what we do is we have one of those little fake credit cards that come in the mail for sales, and we'll have him give that to me as him saying that he would like to use credit. And I explain to him, you understand that this is credit. This is not cash that you've earned yet, and it's going to cost you more money to buy what you would like to buy. And whenever you do buy it, you have to pay me back. If he doesn't pay me on time, I charge him extra the following month. Whenever you act as their creditor, it's kind of a safe way for you to teach them about money. So you can do things like have them borrow money. They can borrow money from you, and then you can charge them accordingly, like charge them an interest rate, charge them a little bit more than the cost of the toy, so that they can understand that it costs more money for them to borrow credit. So it costs more money to buy things on credit, just so that they understand that concept, that it's going to cost them more if they purchase it with credit. Okay, wow, I used credit and I got what I wanted right whenever I wanted it. But man, now I can't get anything for a while because I'm still paying for that toy that I bought a couple months ago. You know what I mean? So, and then once they get a little bit older and they've learned these lessons as younger children, and you really can trust them and see that they're going to be responsible with credit, you can add them as an authorized user onto your credit accounts, that like a lower available credit limit. And this is actually going to help them significantly whenever they very first enter adulthood. And it's going to allow them to have some credit established before they go out on their own. So it's really nice for them to have credit established, because things aren't going to be as expensive for them. They're going to be able to get things like a cell phone, which normally is just like go get a cell phone and you're done. But if you don't have any credit established, it can be kind of difficult to get a cell phone. It's difficult to get the phone. They charge you extra in your payments. They charge you fees if you don't have credit, things like that. So these kind of things, if you can build that trust with your children, and they will not max out your credit cards like crazy or something, you know what I mean? So if you can build that trust with your children, then it would be good to put them as authorized users onto one of your lower balanced credit cards so that you can help them build their credit for their future. And another thing that you want to do is to teach them the true cost of their mistakes. We kind of touched on this a little bit. So if you make a mistake, man, just highlight it, show it out, blaring lights. Hey, mom and dad made this huge mistake. Come and check it out, right? Because as embarrassing as it can be to make mistakes, boy, it's a great teachable moment for you to use that and teach your children, hey, look at this mistake I made and look at what it's costing our family because we made this mistake. And it's a lot easier for them to learn from your mistakes than it's going to be for them to learn from their own mistakes. So these are some ways that I've used to teach my children about finances. Comment below if there's anything that you've used in the past to teach your children about finances. Thanks for watching. Check out this video that YouTube thinks you'll like. Please subscribe. I make videos about personal finance, debt payoff, productivity, as well as cash budget videos, so please follow me on social media. Here is my Instagram handle and the name of my Facebook group. Until next time, live your best life. Bye, guys.